Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the mighty dreadnought Galaxian Thunder. His four eyes studied the holographic display showing the outer edges of the Nexus Prime system. 11 other massive warships floated nearby, their weapons ready and shields up. This was Galaxian space, and everyone in the galaxy knew it. The warning came from Lieutenant Velka at the sensor station. "Commander, we have a contact approaching from human space. Single vessel, unknown class." Zektar's mandibles clicked together in annoyance. Humans again. These new arrivals had been causing trouble across the galaxy for the past few years. Every intelligence report painted them as aggressive, warlike creatures who expanded their territory through brutal conquest. Their ships were said to be heavily armed, and they traveled in large battle fleets. "Show me," Zektar ordered. The main screen flickered and displayed a single ship moving toward their position. It looked ordinary. Not particularly large, not bristling with obvious weapons. It moved at a steady pace, not racing toward them like an attack vessel would. "Just one ship?" Zektar asked, his voice full of confusion. "Yes, Commander. Sensors show it is alone. No other contacts in the area." Zektar stared at the screen. This made no sense. Every other species that entered Galaxian space brought escorts, showed force, made their presence known with power. The Zarathi came with 10 ships minimum. The Korthak brought entire battle groups. Even peaceful traders traveled with armed guards. But the humans sent one ship? "What kind of vessel is it?" he asked. Lieutenant Velka worked at her console. "Difficult to determine, sir. The design is unfamiliar. It appears to be civilian in nature, possibly an exploration or diplomatic vessel. Weapons? Some, but nothing significant. Certainly nothing that could threaten our fleet." Zektar's confusion grew deeper. Intelligence reports said humans were dangerous. They had conquered 3 star systems in the past year. Their military was supposed to be ruthless and efficient, so why would they send a single, lightly armed ship into the heart of Galaxian territory? "Communications incoming from the human vessel," reported Officer Nixtar from the communications station. "Put them through." The screen changed to show the interior of the human ship's bridge. A female human sat in the captain's chair. She had short brown hair and calm blue eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no obvious rank markings or military decorations. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Terra's Promise," she said in clear, accented galactic standard. "We request permission to approach Nexus Prime Station for diplomatic purposes." Zektar studied her face. She looked relaxed, almost casual. Where was the aggression? The demands? The threats that usually came with first contact situations? "Human vessel. This is Commander Zektar of the Galaxian Imperial Fleet. You are in restricted space. State your business." "Commander, I represent the United Earth Colonial Government. We wish to establish diplomatic relations with the Galaxian Empire. I have letters of introduction and proposals for trade agreements." Zektar's officers exchanged glances. This human woman spoke as if she were visiting a market, not entering hostile territory with 12 dreadnoughts pointed at her ship. "You come alone," Zektar said, making it both a question and an accusation. Captain Chen smiled slightly. "Yes, Commander. Terra's Promise is quite capable of handling this mission on her own." "Where is your fleet? Your escort?" "We don't require an escort for diplomatic missions, Commander. We prefer to keep things simple." "Simple?" Zektar's mind raced. No species in the galaxy considered entering foreign space simple. It required careful planning, military escorts, shows of force to demonstrate that you were not weak prey. "Captain Chen, are you aware that you are currently surrounded by 12 Galaxian dreadnoughts, each capable of destroying your vessel?" The human smile never wavered. "Yes, Commander, our sensors detected your ships. Quite impressive vessels. We look forward to learning more about Galaxian technology." This was wrong. All wrong. The human should be nervous, should be calling for backup, should be doing something other than acting like this was a normal conversation. Zektar had dealt with hundreds of first contact situations. Fear, aggression, posturing, these were normal responses. Casual friendliness was not. Why? Did your people send only one ship? He demanded. One ship is sufficient for our needs, Commander. We believe in efficiency. Efficiency? Zektar looked at his tactical display. One small human ship versus 12 Calaxian dreadnoughts. If this was efficiency, the humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Captain Chen, I will grant you permission to dock at Nexus Prime Station. However, your vessel will be escorted and monitored at all times. Any aggressive action will result in immediate destruction. We understand completely, Commander. We appreciate your courtesy. The transmission ended. Zektar stared at the blank screen, his mind spinning with questions. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Orders. Sir? Asked his first officer, Major Colrath. Form an escort formation around the human ship. Full tactical alert. Watch for any signs of additional vessels or hidden weapons. Do you think it's a trap, sir? Zektar considered this. It has to be. No species sends one ship into hostile territory without backup. They must have a fleet hiding somewhere waiting to attack once we lower our guard. But even as he said it, Zektar wasn't convinced. The human captain had seemed genuinely relaxed, not like someone planning an ambush. Her ship's energy signature was stable, showing no signs of charging weapons or preparing for combat. The human vessel, Terra's Promise, moved peacefully toward Nexus Prime Station. It made no sudden movements, sent no hidden signals, and showed no signs of hostile intent. The 12 Calaxian dreadnoughts surrounded it like giants escorting a child. Long-range sensors show no additional contacts, reported Lieutenant Velka. If the humans have a fleet, it's either very far away or using stealth technology we cannot detect. Keep scanning. Check subspace channels for any hidden communications. Yes, sir. As they approached the station, Zektar studied the human ship. More carefully, it was sleek and well-designed, but not obviously military. The hull was smooth, lacking the heavy armor plating and weapon ports that marked a true warship. It looked more like a luxury yacht than a diplomatic vessel entering hostile space. Sir, said Major Colrath quietly, what if they really did send just one ship? Impossible, Zektar replied. No species is that confident, or that foolish. But doubt crept into his mind. What if the humans were that confident? What if they knew something he didn't? Intelligence reports about human military capabilities were limited and often contradictory. Some said they were primitive savages. Others claimed they had weapons that could destroy planets. What if the humans sent one ship because one ship was all they needed? The thought sent a chill through Zektar's exoskeleton. If the humans were that advanced, that powerful, then his entire fleet might be facing a threat they couldn't understand or defeat. Maintain full alert status, he ordered. I want to know everything about that ship and its crew before they dock. As Terra's Promise approached Nexus Prime Station, Zektar couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. The humans had sent one ship into Calaxian space, surrounded by enemies, acting as if they had nothing to fear. Either they were the bravest species in the galaxy, or they knew something that terrified him to consider. The docking bay of Nexus Prime Station was filled with Calaxian security forces. Commander Zektar had ordered 2 full companies of Marines to be present when the human ship arrived. If this was some kind of trick, he would be ready. Terra's Promise settled into the docking bay with surprising grace. The ship's engines made almost no noise as they powered down. Zektar watched from the observation deck as the airlock cycled open. He expected to see soldiers in power armor. He expected weapons and scanning equipment. He expected some show of force or technology that would explain why the humans felt safe sending just one ship. Instead, 5 humans walked out wearing simple diplomatic uniforms. Captain Sarah Chen led the group. Behind her came 4 others, 2 men and 2 women. None wore armor. None carried visible weapons. They looked like tourists. This cannot be right, muttered Major Colrath beside him. Zektar agreed. Where were the guards, the technical specialists, the military advisors? That should accompany any diplomatic mission. These 5 humans looked like they were attending a business meeting, not entering hostile alien territory. The welcoming ceremony took place in the station's main conference room. Zektar sat across from Captain Chen at a large table, his own. Advisors filled the seats around him, military officers, scientists, intelligence specialists. The humans sat quietly, looking around with what seemed like genuine curiosity. "Welcome to Nexus Prime Station," Zektar began formally. "I am Commander Zektar, military governor of this system." "Thank you for receiving us, Commander," Captain Chen replied. "This is Dr. Marcus Webb, our chief engineer. Dr. Lisa Park, our science officer. Ambassador James Morrison, who will handle formal negotiations. And Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner, my first officer." Zektar studied each human face. They all looked relaxed, confident, even friendly. It was deeply unsettling. "Before we begin discussions," Zektar said, "I must address the unusual nature of your arrival. You came alone with minimal escort. This suggests either great confidence or great foolishness." Captain Chen smiled. "We prefer to think of it as efficiency, Commander." "Efficiency?" Zektar's mandibles clicked in irritation. "You entered heavily defended space with one small ship. My fleet could destroy you in seconds." "Yes, your ships are quite impressive," said Dr. Webb, the engineer. "We've been studying your tactical formations. Very well organized." The casual tone made Zektar even more angry. These humans acted like they were commenting on the weather, not discussing their own destruction. "Perhaps you do not understand the situation," Zektar said, his voice growing louder. "You are completely surrounded. Your ship is outnumbered 12-1. You have no backup, no support, no way to escape if these negotiations fail." "We understand perfectly, Commander," Captain Chen said calmly. "We appreciate your caution. It shows wisdom." Zektar stood up abruptly, towering over the seated humans. His officers tensed, hands moving toward weapons. "Do you mock us? Do you think this is some kind of game?" The humans didn't even flinch. Captain Chen remained seated, her expression unchanged. "Not at all, Commander. We take this meeting very seriously. That's why we sent our best diplomatic team." "Your only diplomatic team," Zektar corrected. "Because you only sent one ship." "Yes," Chen agreed. "One ship was sufficient." The word sufficient hit Zektar like a physical blow. Sufficient? Against 12 dreadnoughts? Either these humans were insane, or they knew something he didn't. He decided to test them further. "Very well," he said, sitting back down. "Since you seem so confident, perhaps you won't mind some additional security measures. I'm placing your diplomatic team under protective custody while we conduct a full inspection of your vessel." He expected protests, demands to contact their superiors, threats of retaliation. Instead, Captain Chen nodded agreeably. "Of course, Commander. We want you to feel completely safe during these negotiations." Zektar blinked in confusion. "You agree?" "Absolutely. Inspect our ship thoroughly. We have nothing to hide. This was wrong. No diplomatic team would agree to detention without complaint. No captain would allow their ship to be searched without demanding formal protocols. The humans were either the most trusting species in the galaxy, or they were hiding something incredible." "Major Kolrath," Zektar ordered. "Escort our guests to the diplomatic quarters. Postguards at all entrances." "Yes, sir." As the humans were led away, Zektar noticed that Dr. Webb was studying the station's architecture with professional interest. Dr. Park was examining the alien artwork on the walls. Ambassador Morrison was making friendly conversation with the guards. They acted like prisoners who were enjoying a tour. 2 hours later, Zektar received the first reports from the boarding teams searching Terra's Promise. The news was confusing. "Sir," reported Chief Engineer Nexhi over the communication system, "we've completed our initial sweep of the human vessel." "What did you find?" "That's difficult to explain, sir. The ship appears to be exactly what they claimed. A diplomatic vessel. No hidden weapons, no secret compartments, no signs of military technology. Then why do they seem so confident?" "I don't know, sir, but there are some unusual things. Their power systems are different." more advanced than anything. In our technical databases, Zektar leaned forward. How advanced? Sir, I'm not even sure how their engines work. The basic principles seem similar to our quantum drives, but the execution is completely foreign. It's like comparing a child's toy to a master craftsman's work. This was the first real clue. Can you access their computer systems? That's the other problem, sir. We can't interface with their computers at all, not because they're defended, but because the technology is so far ahead of ours that our equipment can't even recognize it as a computer system. Zektar felt cold fear creeping up his spine. Are you saying the humans have technology we can't understand? Sir, I'm saying they have technology I didn't know was possible. The commander ended the communication and sat in silence. Outside the windows of his ship, Terra's Promise looked small and harmless. But if his chief engineer was right, that innocent-looking vessel might be more advanced than his entire fleet. He called up the intelligence files on human expansion, 3 star systems conquered in 1 year. But now he wondered, had they been conquered through military force, or had the previous inhabitants simply realized they were outmatched? His communication system chimed. It was Major Colrath from the diplomatic quarters. Sir, you need to hear this conversation. What conversation? The humans are talking among themselves. They don't seem to realize we're monitoring them. Put it through. The voices of the human diplomatic team filled his office. They were discussing dinner plans. I hope they have something similar to Earth cuisine, Dr. Park was saying. I'm sure we can adapt, Captain Chen replied. Remember, we're guests here. The station's artificial gravity is well calibrated, commented Dr. Webb. Their engineering is quite good, considering their technological level. Considering their technological level? Major Colrath's voice came through privately. Sir, they're talking about us like we're primitives. Zektar listened to more of the conversation. The humans discussed Galaxian architecture, technology, and culture with the tone of anthropologists studying an interesting but inferior civilization. Dr. Webb, came Captain Chen's voice. How long would it take us to reach the Centauri colonies if we left now? From here? About 8 hours at cruise speed. 8 hours? Zektar checked his charts. The Centauri colonies were 3 weeks away by the fastest Galaxian ships. Commander, Major Colrath said urgently, if they can travel that fast. Zektar. Understood. If the humans could cover distances in hours that took his ships weeks, then they didn't need a fleet. One ship could outrun anything he could send after it. One ship could call for reinforcements and have them arrive before his fleet could even leave the system. The humans hadn't sent one ship because they were brave or foolish. They had sent one ship because one ship was all they needed. Commander Zektar paced in his office, his forearms moving restlessly. The reports from his boarding teams made less sense with each passing hour. The human ship was exactly what it appeared to be, a diplomatic vessel. No hidden weapons, no secret military equipment, no signs of deception, but the technology was impossible. Sir, Chief Engineer Nexhi's voice came through the communication system. You need to see this personally. I'm on my way. Zektar took a shuttle to Terra's Promise. The human ship's docking bay was clean and efficient, with none of the military modifications he expected. Everything looked peaceful, almost civilian. Nexhi met him at the airlock. Sir, I've been examining their systems for 6 hours. I think I understand why they sent only one ship. Show me. They walked through the corridors of Terra's Promise. The ship was smaller than a Galaxian cruiser, but everything about it spoke of advanced engineering. The walls were smooth, the lighting was perfect, and the air circulation was so efficient it was almost unnoticeable. Here, Nexhi said, stopping at what appeared to be the engine room. Look at this. Zektar stared at the machinery before him. He had spent 30 years studying starship engines, but this made no sense. The quantum drive core was half the size of a Galaxian equivalent, yet the power readings were 10 times higher. How is this possible? I don't know, sir. The human engineer, Dr. Webb, explained it to me. He called them efficiency improvements. But these aren't improvements. This is a completely different approach to quantum mechanics. Nexhi led him to a control panel. According to Dr. Webb, this ship can reach speeds that would let it cross the entire Calaxian Empire in 2 days. 2 days? Zektar's voice cracked. Our fastest courier ships need 3 months for that journey. There's more, sir. Their defensive systems. Nexhai showed him another panel. The readings made Zektar's head spin. The ship's shields were powered by the same advanced technology as the engines. According to the displays, Terra's promise could absorb the combined firepower of his entire fleet and barely notice. This has to be wrong, Zektar said. That's what I thought. So I asked Dr. Webb to demonstrate. You what? I explained that our sensors couldn't understand their technology. He offered to show me how it worked. Nexhai led him to the ship's bridge. Dr. Webb was there, working at a console with 2 Calaxian technicians. He looked up when they entered. Commander, Zektar, good to see you again. Your engineers are very skilled. We've been having fascinating discussions about quantum field manipulation. Dr. Webb, Zektar said carefully, my chief engineer says your ship has capabilities that seem unusual. Oh, you mean the drive system? Yes, we've made some improvements over the standard designs. Would you like to see how it works? Without waiting for an answer, Dr. Webb began activating controls. The ship's displays lit up with information that hurt Zektar's eyes to look at. This is our quantum efficiency matrix, Dr. Webb explained cheerfully. Instead of fighting quantum resistance, we work with it. Think of it like swimming with the current instead of against it. He touched another control. The ship's power readings spiked to levels that should have been impossible. Of course, we're only running at minimum power while docked, Dr. Webb continued. At full acceleration, we can reach about 40% of light speed in normal space. 40% of light speed? Calaxian ships maxed out at 2% and only for short bursts. Dr. Webb, Zektar said slowly, how fast can your ship travel through quantum space? Oh, much faster there. The quantum efficiency improvements really shine in folded space. We can maintain about 1,500 times standard velocity. Zektar's legs nearly gave out. 1,500 times standard velocity would let this one ship outrun anything in the galaxy. If the humans wanted to escape, his fleet couldn't even follow them. Perhaps you'd like to see our defensive systems, Dr. Webb offered. Your what? Well, diplomatic vessels need protection, especially when visiting new species. We never know what we might encounter. Dr. Webb activated another set of controls. The ship's shield display showed energy patterns that defied everything Zektar knew about defensive technology. This is a standard diplomatic shield array, Dr. Webb said casually, rated for protection against most military-grade weapons. Of course, we hope never to need it, Nexhai whispered urgently in Zektar's ear. Sir, according to these readings, their shields could absorb direct hits from our main guns without failing. How many hits? Zektar whispered back. All of them, sir. From all 12 ships, at the same time. Zektar stared at the friendly human engineer who was explaining alien technology as if he were showing off a new tool. This man stood on a ship that could outrun or outfight anything in the Calaxian fleet, and he acted like it was perfectly normal. Dr. Webb, Zektar said carefully, these systems seem very advanced for a diplomatic vessel. Really? This is pretty standard for human ships. Actually, Terra's Promise is one of our older designs. The newer diplomatic vessels are much more efficient. Older designs? If this was old technology, what were the humans building now? I would like to speak with Captain Chen, Zektar said. Of course. She's in the conference room with your ambassador, Morrison, discussing trade agreements. They found Captain Chen reviewing documents with Ambassador Morrison. She looked up when they entered, still wearing that calm, friendly expression that was beginning to terrify Zektar. Commander, I hope the tour has been informative. Captain Chen, I need to ask you directly. Why did your people send only one ship? She tilted her head thoughtfully. I'm not sure I understand the question, Commander. You entered our space with one vessel, one ship against 12 dreadnoughts. Either you're incredibly brave, incredibly foolish, or you know something. I don't. Captain Chen's expression became more serious. Commander, may I speak plainly? Please. We sent one ship because one ship is sufficient for our mission. We're here to establish diplomatic relations and discuss trade. One diplomatic vessel can handle those tasks. But you must have considered the military situation. You're outnumbered, outgunned, surrounded. Captain Chen looked genuinely puzzled. Commander, are you planning to attack us? No, but then why would we need military? Vessels were diplomats, not conquerors. The simple logic of her statement hit Zektar like a hammer. The humans hadn't brought a fleet because they didn't intend to fight. But more than that, they didn't need to fight. Their one ship was more powerful than his entire fleet. Captain, he said slowly, your Dr. Webb has shown me your ship's capabilities. According to our analysis, Terra's promise could defeat our entire fleet single-handedly. I certainly hope that won't be necessary, she replied. We much prefer peaceful solutions. But if it were necessary, Captain Chen looked uncomfortable for the first time since arriving. Commander, I don't like to discuss theoretical combat situations. We're here for diplomacy. But you could, Zektar pressed. If you wanted to, you could destroy my fleet. Commander, she said firmly, we don't want to. That's why we sent diplomats instead of soldiers. The terrifying truth finally hit Zektar. The humans hadn't sent one ship because they were overconfident. They had sent one ship because they were being polite. Bringing a fleet would have been like bringing weapons to a peace negotiation. From their perspective, Terra's promise wasn't a vulnerable target surrounded by enemies. It was a diplomatic gesture, a show of good faith. They were demonstrating trust by coming alone. But the underlying message was clear. They were so advanced that they could afford to be trusting. Captain Chen, Zektar said quietly, I think I'm beginning to understand. She smiled. Understanding is the first step toward friendship, Commander. As Zektar left the human ship, his mind reeled with implications. Everything he thought he knew about galactic politics had just been turned upside down. The humans hadn't conquered 3 star systems through military force. They had simply arrived with technology so advanced that resistance was pointless. They offered partnership instead of demanding surrender, but the choice was clear. And they had sent one ship to Calaxian space because one ship was enough. Not enough to conquer, enough to make their point. The question wasn't why the humans had sent only one ship. The question was what the Calaxians were going to do about it. Commander Zektar called an emergency meeting of his senior staff. The conference room aboard Calaxian Thunder was filled with his best officers, all wearing expressions of confusion and concern. Report, Zektar ordered. Chief Engineer Nexhai stood first. Sir, I've completed my analysis of the human vessel. The technology is beyond anything in our databases. Their engines alone represent advances we're centuries away from achieving. Weapons? Asked Major Colrath. Minimal visible armament, but their defensive systems could handle our entire fleet. More importantly, sir, their speed advantage means they don't need weapons, they could simply outrun us. Intelligence Officer Yexai spoke next. Sir, I've been reviewing our files on human expansion. I think we've been misunderstanding their methods. Explain. We assumed they conquered the Zarathi colonies through military force. But what if they simply arrived with superior technology and offered better terms than the Zarathi government? The room fell silent. This possibility had never occurred to any of them. Are you suggesting, Major Colrath said slowly, that the humans are expanding through economics rather than conquest? It would explain everything, sir. Why send fleets when you can send trade ships? Why fight wars when you can offer better living conditions? Zektar considered this. If true, it would mean human expansion was fundamentally different from anything they had encountered before. Every other species expanded through military conquest or political pressure. The humans might be expanding through simple superiority. Sir, Communications Officer Nixtar interrupted. Captain Chen is requesting another meeting. She says she has something important to show us. Very well. But this time we meet on our terms. Bring her to our ship. An hour later, Captain Chen and Dr. Webb were escorted to the conference room aboard Calaxian Thunder. They looked around with the same casual interest they had shown everywhere else. Thank you for agreeing to meet again, Commander, Captain Chen said. I believe there have been some misunderstandings about our intentions. Please, explain. Commander, my mission here is to offer partnership, not to make demands. Earth's government believes the Galaxian Empire would make an excellent ally. Ally? Zektar couldn't hide his surprise. You want us as allies? Of course. The Galaxians have built an impressive civilization. Your engineering skills, your organizational abilities, your cultural achievements, these are all things we admire. Dr. Webb nodded enthusiastically. Your quantum drive technology is particularly elegant. We'd love to share some of our improvements in exchange for studying your design philosophy. Zektar stared at them. You want to trade with us? Learn from us? Absolutely, Captain Chen said. Commander, I think you may have the wrong impression about human intentions. We're not conquerors. We're explorers and traders. But your technology is so far advanced? Yes, in some areas, but advancement isn't everything. The Galaxians have developed social and political systems that we find fascinating. Your multi-species democracy is something Earth is very interested in studying. Zektar felt off balance. Everything about this conversation contradicted his expectations. Captain, your ship could destroy our entire fleet. Theoretically, perhaps. But why would we want to do that? Destroyed ships don't make good trading partners. Dr. Webb leaned forward. Commander, may I show you something that might help explain our perspective? At Zektar's nod, Dr. Webb activated a small device that projected a holographic star map. It showed human space and the surrounding regions. This is our current territory, Dr. Webb said, highlighting several star systems. 17 colonies, all connected by regular trade routes. Only 17 systems? Major Kolrath asked. Intelligence reports suggested you controlled much more. We don't control anything, Captain Chen corrected. These are partnerships. Each system maintains its own government. We provide technology and trade. They provide resources and cultural exchange. The map expanded to show more detail. Zektar could see trade routes connecting human space to dozens of other systems, including some he recognized as belonging to former enemies of the Galaxian Empire. The Zerathi colonies, he said, pointing to one region. Excellent partners, Dr. Webb confirmed. They needed clean energy technology. We needed rare metals. Now everyone benefits. But they were our enemies. They were your competitors, Captain Chen corrected gently. Now they could be your partners too. She manipulated the map to show potential trade routes. Commander, imagine if Galaxian ships could reach any point in your empire in days instead of weeks. Imagine if your colonies had access to fusion power, quantum computers, medical technology that could extend lifespans by centuries. Zektar stared at the projected possibilities. With human technology, the Galaxian Empire could become something incredible. What would you want in return? Partnership, Captain Chen said simply. Access to your markets, cultural exchange, shared scientific research. The humans have learned that cooperation produces better results than conquest. And if we refuse? Captain Chen looked sad. Then we'd leave. We don't force partnerships, Commander. They only work when both sides benefit. Dr. Webb added, Of course, other species might be interested in what we're offering. The Korthak have already sent inquiries about trade agreements. The Korthak, Galaxia's main rivals. If they gained access to human technology, this is why you sent one ship, Zektar realized. You're not threatening us. You're making an offer. Exactly, Captain Chen smiled. One ship is sufficient for making offers. We only send fleets when we're moving families to new colonies. And if someone attacks your ships? Dr. Webb shrugged. Our ships are very good at not being attacked. Speed and defense are excellent deterrents. Zektar finally understood. The humans had solved the fundamental problem of galactic politics. Instead of using superior technology to conquer, they used it to make conquest unnecessary. Why fight? For resources when you could trade for them? Why rule through fear when you could lead through benefits? Captain Chen, he said slowly, I believe my government will be very interested in these trade proposals. Wonderful. I have detailed proposals prepared. Fair terms for everyone involved. As the meeting continued, Zektar realized that his entire worldview was changing. The humans hadn't sent one ship because they were overconfident or naive. They had sent one ship because it was the right tool for the job. When you came in peace offering partnership and mutual benefit, you didn't need a fleet. You needed a diplomat. The genius of human strategy was that it made military force irrelevant. Who would fight a war when they could have a trade agreement? Who would choose conquest when they could choose prosperity? There is one thing I must know, Zektar said. Why approach us? You could have any species as partners. Captain Chen's expression became more serious. Commander, the Galaxian Empire is respected throughout this region of space. Your reputation for honor and fair dealing precedes you. When Earth decided to establish relations in this sector, the Galaxians were our first choice. First choice. Not targets for conquest, but preferred partners. Besides, Dr. Webb added with a grin, your engineering is really impressive. We have a lot to learn from each other. As the meeting ended and the humans returned to their ship, Zektar sat alone in his conference room. Outside his windows, Terra's promise waited patiently, looking small and harmless among his massive dreadnoughts. But appearances were deceiving. That single ship represented power beyond anything his fleet could match. Not the power to destroy, but the power to offer something better than destruction. The humans had sent one ship because one ship was enough to change everything. For the first time in his military career, Zektar was grateful that his enemies had chosen to be friends instead. 3 days later, Commander Zektar stood in the docking bay watching Terra's promise prepare for departure. The negotiations had been completed faster than anyone expected. Captain Chen and her team had presented trade proposals that were almost too generous to believe. Technology transfers that would advance Galaxian civilization by centuries. Medical knowledge that could save millions of lives. Energy systems that would make resource scarcity a thing of the past. All offered freely, asking only for partnership in return. It was the kind of deal that seemed too good to be true. Commander, Major Kolrath approached carrying a datapad. The final reports from our analysis teams. Zektar took the pad and reviewed the information. Every department had reached the same conclusion. Human technology was genuine and their offer of partnership was real. What does intelligence say about their motives? That's the strangest part, sir. As far as we can determine, they really do prefer cooperation to conquest. Their expansion pattern supports this. Every system they've contacted has become a willing partner. And the ones that refused? They were left alone. No retaliation, no pressure, no follow-up contact. The humans simply moved on to other systems. Zektar considered this. In his experience, powerful species didn't walk away from refused offers. They made those offers more compelling through force. The humans seemed to genuinely accept rejection. Sir, Major Kolrath continued, there's something else. We've been monitoring their communications with Earth. What did you find? Nothing threatening. Captain Chen has been reporting on our culture, our technology, our political system. But the reports are positive. She's recommending the Galaxian Empire as an ideal partner. This surprised Zektar. Most first contact reports focused on military capabilities and potential threats. The humans seemed more interested in compatibility and mutual benefit. Captain Chen approached across the docking bay. She moved with the same calm confidence she had shown throughout the negotiations. Commander, thank you for your hospitality. I hope this is the beginning of a long friendship. Captain, I have one final question. Of course. Why are you being so generous? These trade terms heavily favor the Galaxian Empire. Captain Chen smiled. Commander, successful partnerships require both sides to benefit. We're taking a long-term view. Meaning? Meaning the Galaxian Empire will be a more valuable partner if it's prosperous and advanced. These initial terms are an investment in our mutual future. Dr. Webb joined the conversation. Besides, Commander, we've learned so much from studying your systems. Galaxian quantum mathematics are really elegant. We're already thinking of applications for our newer ships. The casual mention of newer ships reminded Zektar of something that had been bothering him. Dr. Webb, you mentioned that Terra's Promise is one of your older designs. What are your newer ships like? Oh, much more efficient. Better engines, improved shields, enhanced living spaces. The Mark 7 diplomatic vessels are really impressive. More advanced than this ship? Significantly, but Terra's Promise is perfectly adequate for diplomatic missions. Zektar felt a chill. If this ship could outfight his entire fleet, what could the newer designs do? Captain Chen, he said carefully, I must ask, how advanced is human military technology? Her expression became more serious. Commander, that's not really my area of expertise. I'm a diplomat, not a military officer. But you must have some idea. Well, she said thoughtfully, I know that Earth maintains a defense fleet, but honestly, we haven't needed to use it. Diplomacy has been much more effective. Have you ever encountered hostile species? A few. Most species become much more reasonable when they understand what we're offering. The ones that don't. Well, our ships are very good at avoiding trouble. Dr. Webb nodded. It's amazing how much less aggressive people become when they realize you can outrun their entire fleet. The implications were staggering. The humans had developed technology so advanced that they didn't need military conquest. They could simply offer partnership to those who were reasonable and avoid those who weren't. There is one thing that puzzles me, Zektar said. You've shown us incredible technology, offered generous terms, asked for very little in return. What prevents us from simply taking what we want by force? Captain Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes became colder. Commander, that would be a very poor decision. Why? Because partnership works both ways. Our technology comes with ongoing support, training, upgrades. If you tried to take it by force, that support would end immediately. Dr. Webb added, plus, stolen technology never works as well as gifted technology. Our systems require specific knowledge to maintain. Without cooperation, they'd break down within months. And, Captain Chen continued, Earth would be very disappointed in the Galaxian Empire. We've been telling our government what honorable people you are. The threat was politely delivered but unmistakable. If the Galaxians betrayed human trust, they would lose access to human technology and gain human disapproval. Given what Zektar had learned about human capabilities, neither option was attractive. Of course, Captain Chen added with a smile, we don't expect any such problems. The Galaxian Empire has a reputation for keeping its agreements. One final question, Captain. What happens if we refuse your offer entirely? Then we leave, she said simply. No hard feelings. Perhaps we'll try again in a few years when circumstances have changed. And if we accept? Then this is just the beginning. Trade agreements, technology transfers, cultural exchange programs. Perhaps someday, joint exploration missions to distant galaxies. The choice was clear. Accept partnership with the most advanced species in known space or be left behind while others moved into the future. Captain Chen, I will recommend that my government accept your proposals. Wonderful. I'll leave a communication beacon so we can coordinate the details. As Terra's Promise prepared to depart, Zektar realized that everything about galactic politics was about to change. The humans had introduced a new model, expansion through cooperation rather than conquest. The genius of their approach was that it made resistance pointless. You could fight them and lose, or ignore them and be left behind, or join them and prosper. The choice was obvious. Captain Chen appeared at the airlock one final time. Commander, thank you for your wisdom in these negotiations. I look forward to our next meeting. Captain, I have learned much from our encounter. Perhaps too much. She tilted her head curiously. I finally understand why you sent only one ship, Zektar explained. It wasn't confidence or naivety. It was a demonstration. How so? You showed us that you could enter our space alone, surrounded by enemies, and leave safely with everything you came for. One ship was enough because you made it enough, Captain Chen smiled. Commander, I think you understand humans better than most of my own species. As Terra's promise undocked and moved toward the edge of the system, Zektar watched from his bridge. The human ship accelerated smoothly, reaching speeds that made his fastest vessels look stationary. "Orders, sir?" asked Major Kolrath. "Send a message to High Command. Tell them we have a decision to make. Either we become partners with the humans, or we watch our enemies become partners instead. And your recommendation?" Zektar watched Terra's promise disappear into quantum space, covering in seconds a distance that would take his ships hours. "Tell them the humans sent one ship because one ship was sufficient. Not sufficient to conquer us, but sufficient to change everything. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation had begun, and humanity had announced both with a single ship that came in peace and left with friendship." In the years that followed, historians would mark this moment as the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization. But Zektar would always remember it as the day he learned that the most powerful weapon in the universe wasn't a gun or a bomb. It was an offer of partnership that was too good to refuse. The humans had sent one ship because one ship was all they needed to win without fighting. And that, Zektar realized, was the most terrifying and wonderful thing about humans. They had figured out how to conquer the galaxy by making everyone want to join them voluntarily. No wonder they only sent one ship. One ship was enough to change the universe.